Kristiaan Yeo joins us now live from Toronto for more perspective on what NAFTA currently means and has meant to Canadian businesses over the past 2 decades. Kristiaan.
Yes, Michelle. Well, if we have a quick history lesson, as you touched on there, back in the 1980s, the idea of free trade with any of our neighbours was a risky concept, and it was very divisive here. This was the trilateral trade pact that might never have been, according to the former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. He recalls in today's Globe and Mail newspaper that Canada's main objective was a trade pact with the US, and it struck that in 1989. COMCAST came into effect. The US and Mexico then struck its own deal and later invited Canada to those talks, and it was decided that COMCAST would be folded into NAFTA, and that's the trilateral partnership that we have today. Now, that was very lucrative to Canada because it opened up Mexico to Canadian mining firms. We've now got access to Mexico's vast natural resources, and resource extraction is this country's bread and butter. While Canadians may sometimes feel overshadowed by the superpower to the south, its economic ties to the US have given Canada a sense of security. 70% of this country's foreign trade is with the US, so when the world's biggest economy is revving up, Canadians are cashing in. But there was a time when trading with Canada's neighbours was costly and cumbersome.
There was a recognition in Canada that we were a troubled economy in the middle 1980s. We were a trading country. We were doing a lot of business with the United States, but we didn't have the kind of market access to the U.S. that we really needed. We didn't have low enough tariffs. We didn't have aligned standards, rules, technical barriers.
When Canada entered talks with the U.S. to form a union, which would later include Mexico, opposition was fierce. Canada already enjoyed close ties and some free trade with the US, but the idea of NAFTA divided opinion and became a key issue of the 1988 Canadian election. Opponents warned it would begin a foreign invasion. Industries would be bought up, jobs would be moved south, and Canadians would be worse off. But for many business owners like Greg Hyde, those concerns did not materialize. Instead, NAFTA made trading and expanding south more feasible.
In using NAFTA, we find it seamless here at this point. We do purchase product from the United States and bring it into the Canadian market. We also sell into the United States. And it's a form, it's a couple of pieces of paper that you fill out.
Greg's company manufactures chip and pin security products and already counts McDonald's Canada as a client. But access to the vast American market is hugely attractive.
In Canada, we've got 34 million people. In the United States, you've got 350 million. You know, you take a retailer in Canada, Walmart, they have 16,000 checkout lanes. In the United States, they have 250,000 checkout lanes.
NAFTA also paved the way for Canada's mining expansion in Mexico. 75% of all foreign investment in Mexican mines comes from Canada. But Mexico's appeal extends beyond natural resources.
I do think one of the side effects that came out of NAFTA was the growing importance of Mexico and the greater competition that Canada now faces with Mexico in terms of labor costs, in terms of some of the other things that they have better competitive advantage versus Canada. And so it's not just a Canada-US economy anymore, it's a North American economy.
Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper travels to Mexico at a time when relations between the two nations are strained. Mexico's ambassador in Ottawa has described his country's anger over stringent visa requirements imposed on Mexicans. As attention now turns to wider trade pacts like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which may one day replace NAFTA, the three North American leaders will need to decide whether to smooth out the kinks in their current union before opening the door to new members. And we've heard fresh words today with regards to that Mexico visa issue. A spokesman for the Mexican government has touted the importance of free movement between the countries. Now, NAFTA eased traveling for Americans and Canadians, but it appears, according to the Mexicans, that for them it's a very different story. And that puts at risk a blossoming relationship between Mexico and Canada. As I think you mentioned at the beginning there, trade with Mexico, between Canada and Mexico, has increased 6-fold since NAFTA. Tourism has more than doubled in a decade. It would be a shame for this row over visas to dampen that relationship, Michelle.